It goes down to the floor for second reading. And then it goes to the Ways and Means Committee, which holds no public hearing. And this can really throw people off, and they wonder why this is. And it's about the compact nature of the calendar. If the Ways and Means Committee has to consider everything that has fiscal implication, which is a huge number of the bills, they don't necessarily have time to sit in a hearing room and say, who would like to come up and testify before us in person on this measure. So in this way, the House and the Senate have different rules, and the House and Senate rules are online, and I can show you where those are. On the House side, the rules say that every committee that considers a measure has to hold those public hearings where people are invited to come up and make oral testimony. On the Senate side, the rules say that a public hearing has to be held. So that if this bill had only been referred to the Ways and Means Committee, for instance, on the Senate side, then they would have had to invite people up to make that public testimony. This does not mean that you shouldn't testify on this matter at the Ways and Means Committee. You absolutely should. You can send in written testimony, and there are many different ways that you can provide written input to this matter. And so they will consider your testimony. And I'll say I've worked in the House and the Senate, and I've been a committee clerk, and I've been an office manager, and I will tell you absolutely that your testimony will be read and considered. I used to go to work at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning with my boss and our assistants and read through all of the testimony in advance of a hearing, so it is definitely paid attention to. Third reading, we will broadcast. And at second crossover, when all bills have to go back to the Chamber of Origin, all House bills that went to the Senate will be going back to the House if they're still alive. Likewise, all Senate bills that crossed to the House earlier will be going back to the Senate. The prodigal bills go home. So this matter survives in the Senate. And it's now the Senate Draft 3, so there have been like 6 different versions of this bill. And again, I just can't emphasize enough, that is because of citizen input into the process of democracy. The House now has the opportunity to decide whether or not they can live with the Senate Draft 3, or do they really like their most recent version? I think it was House Draft 2. They have to make that decision. If they decide that the Senate Draft 3 is fine, then that's the version that will go to the governor for his consideration. But they're very likely to disagree on that. And I do love this photo. The lady that works in my office, Virginia, took this photo, and it really encapsulates the whole concept of disagreement. And I think that toward the end of the session, when disagree notices start running around through the Capitol, I find that as a good sign that both sides are still interested in furthering their discussion on these matters. That, to me, says that both sides are still interested in the matter. If the House and the Senate agree to disagree, then a conference is set up. And the people who sit in conference will be, there will be Republicans and Democrats and House and Senate members. The subject committees will definitely have somebody in conference. Who will never be sitting in a conference committee is any legislator who has voted no anywhere along the way on this matter, because they've already said that they don't like this bill. They voted no. And so for this reason, you will find lots of aye votes, lots of ayes with reservations, which is polite for no. Or maybe people actually have reservations, but you won't find that many no votes, because conference is a very influential place for a legislator to sit. Now, you and I, as citizens, have had all of these different opportunities to testify on this matter at the various committee levels. When it comes conference time, you do not testify because you've already educated both the House and the Senate about this matter. But if you've been deeply involved in this matter from the beginning, and they know that about you, and you have provided crucial information, then by all means, do your best to be at conference, because they can easily turn to you and say, help us out here with a little more information. And so you have those additional opportunities to influence the outcome for this piece of legislation. So conference draft is created, and that is that's taking pieces from the House versions and pieces from the Senate version. What's not supposed to happen is any new material is not supposed to be introduced at the conference level. And so this is the compromise they work out. Bicycles are mandatory if you're 18 and over. You pay into the highway fund, you wear a helmet. And sometimes they can't agree on a conference draft 1, and you will see conference draft 2s now and again. This goes to both chambers for a final reading, we have in here rancorous partisan debate. And you know, sometimes it's really hard to sit and listen to them just kind of going at one another, and just, you know, the Republicans are doing this and the Democrats are doing this, and you're going, geez, guys, you know, this bill is really important to me, but in the big scheme of things, I don't understand why you're so bent out of shape and why you're having such a rancorous debate about this. And to me, what this is both parties using this, pardon the pun, as a vehicle to further the public discussion on their philosophies of governance. And so this is the chance to say, for people to say, I like less government, I like more government. And so those debates, when you understand that those are democracy in action, that makes them a little easier to bear. So the governor then has the opportunity to consider this piece of legislation, and he can do these things: sign, veto, or allow it to become law without his signature. If he vetoes it, then the legislature has one more chance. They can go and have a 2/3 vote to override a veto in both chambers, and if they succeed in doing that, then the bill can still become law. And you see that the fish has become a fowl, and that is, again, that is about you and me having our input and helping the legislators come up with a better piece of legislation. So Betty's on the road. She's got her helmet. She's 18. She got her money. And all our traffic problems are solved throughout the state. Make sure to celebrate. And make sure to pick up the phone and use that toll-free number to call the people and say thanks to the ones that really helped you out a lot. You know, and staff members really thrive on thank yous, and they also thrive on cookies. If you ever come over, just remember the cookies thing, too. Most likely, this is what's going to happen to your beautiful little bill. It might just going to die right there in front of you. It's just such a sad thing. But it's not necessarily over. And we talked about this earlier, just briefly. You know, bills that die in the first session can come back in the second session. So they didn't really die. They just kind of went comatose. But there also may be other legislation out there. Maybe there's another bill called relating to transportation that's got a hearing coming up next week. So you testify on that other bill, and you go, oh, you got a great bill here, but you could really improve it by including this material about the bicycles. And then at the end of the second year, if your bill really did die, then have it reintroduced. It'll have a new bill number, but it will, the concept will not die. And don't ever give up. Use the interim, 70% of the calendar year, and then the whole happy thing starts all over again. And just remember to call us if you need help.